Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Women Leaders. Today, I'm really excited to welcome to the show my friend and fellow physician coach, Professor Stephanie Byerly. Stephanie is an amazing person. She is a professor of anesthesiology and pain management. She's an obstetric anesthesiologist. She's a life coach who helps women physicians get joy back in their personal and professional life so they don't have to leave medicine. Her life coaching business is called Physician Healer. She loves to coach women in leadership, those who aspire to be in leadership and those who are having challenges in leadership. She also loves coaching physicians who've suffered trauma. For example, if they have someone close to them who has struggled with an addiction, or if they personally have been involved with a narcissist on the receiving end of that kind of behavior. So I think it's very fair to say that Professor Byerly is leading the way with inspiration. So without further ado, let's meet Professor Stephanie Byerly. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and speak to the show's audience. I'm so excited to have you
here. Thank you, Adam. I am ecstatic to be here.
Bless you. Okay, so in your own words, obviously I've read your introduction, but would you like to tell the audience a little bit more about you, including what your current work roles are and what leadership positions you currently hold or have held in the past, please?
Yes, so I am an academic anesthesiologist, and I would say, went through all the things that occur for women that are striving to get promoted in academic medicine. But I've been very fortunate to hold many administrative or leadership roles. So I was chief of staff of the hospital that I spent 17 years practicing, and then was also just gave up a role as the head of a large division of obstetrical anesthesiology, where we take care of incredibly sick women. I was also the head of the general anesthesia team prior to that. And I am also currently the chair of the Committee on Women Anesthesiologists for the American Society of Anesthesiologists, but I've also really held many leadership roles within the hospital and within my department as well.
Wow, that's a very impressive resume.
Thank you.
And in a very, from what I can gather from coaching physicians in academic medicine, it can be a very, very challenging environment, the academic side of things, sometimes more so than the general hospital side of things. So.
And especially for women, there's definitely a whole subset of challenges that women face in medicine in general, but especially in academic medicine.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll learn a bit more about those as we go on. So thank you for that. So what would you say your personal leadership style is?
Well, let's see. If we talk about the DISC profile, I am a D, a very dominant person. I think I've learned over the years not to rule, see how I'm saying rule, but with command, how there's this kind of command and control. I've learned over the years really about how to lead. I think as times have changed, where really you're leading a team and everybody has a part in the decision making, and so that you want to empower everybody on your team to feel like they really are participating and what they think matters and what they would like to accomplish in their role matters, because the team is really only as good as all of the parts that make up the team. And so I would say, though, that my leadership style has really evolved into that, versus prior to that, really being in a situation where I was in charge of a large group of people. And some of the people that I was in leadership of were gentlemen that were older than me, who had been in the role prior to that, the same role. And so when I came in as a young 35-year-old woman, they're like, who is this, woman that's coming in to try to tell me what to do? And so, again, I would say leadership style has changed. I'm also, if you ever follow the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 8, which is the challenger, which is I'm sort of the person who's always ready. Like if you come at me with an issue, I'm ready to sort of go. I don't shy away from confrontation, I would
Yeah.
say. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, I think in the environments within which you've worked, it would seem that if you hadn't taken that kind of approach initially, you'd have been walked all over, I'm guessing.
Yes, I absolutely love what I do. I do obstetrical anesthesia as well as general anesthesia in the operating room. And I will say, though, that the operating room or the perioperative environment can be a hostile work environment at some points.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of tension, there's a lot of stress. We take care of very sick patients, and there are sometimes personalities at play. And what we find happens is that the anesthesia team oftentimes gets degraded and sort of becomes the center for dysfunction as far as people coming at them and blaming and
Right.
stressful environments. And so you have to really be able to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And because you're really, standing up for the patient first, but
of course, yeah.
it can be a very, contentious environment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see that. Yeah. And as you've sort of matured into your role, you've become more collaborative, more affiliative, more sort of coaching style, presumably, and involving people, you said, more democratic, that kind of thing. So it's, yeah.
And the thing for me is I'm a fixer. So if there's an issue, I want to go in, find out, what all the issues are, and then I want to fix it, which sometimes the system is not ready for that. So I think oftentimes you're brought in as an agent of change, and you come in and you learn what needs to be fixed. And then when you try to go ahead and push those initiatives through, depending on your system, they may not be ready for all of those. So it may be a process. And what I've definitely learned over the years is slow, constant pressure. And some things that I had initiated, say 5 years ago in my previous role, it took 5 years to get something approved, but it was something that the system has to be ready for it.
Yeah. 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 No, that makes perfect sense.
Yes, but not to give up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're certainly playing the long game if you're thinking it takes 5 years. But I guess that's where, having a strategic, overview of things and a visionary kind of, we need things to be like this in a certain period of time. We know it's going to take this long. So let's just start the ball rolling and just keep, tapping away.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things that happens with physicians is that we have this moral injury piece where we see things that are happening that we know are not the way that things should necessarily be.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've definitely learned over the years, and especially with coaching, is that when you resist all of these things, so I'm not saying that things that are, egregious or there's a threat to a patient's life, but just things that you think should be fixed now, or when we continue to resist that, that's what ends up causing a lot of issues for us personally, instead of learning how to function within the system if you want to stay in that system. Yeah. And so really understanding where, what you're dealing with and how do you want to handle this, but not from a place of being a victim and things always happening to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of, it's important to want to have those, negative things to change and improve. But if you're constantly fighting and you're not kind of picking your battles and being strategic about it, kind of not thinking along the lines of Covey's circles of what you can control and what things, you're just banging your head against the wall, and that's wasted time and energy, right? Then that would definitely contribute to just feeling exhausted, wouldn't it? You'd just be like, I can't face any more battles,
Right. And burnout and all the things that, come from that, or moral injury, whichever, term. But so it's really the resisting that we do causes so much of our own angst.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Brilliant. Thank you. So, I definitely feel I have an insight into your style and how it's changed over the years. And, you tell us how you kind of got into these leadership roles, kind of what led up to you achieving them? You were obviously very, very young when you, what, 5 or 7 years or something out of med school, and you were,
I have to say, I think part of it came from my childhood and the things that I faced. So I grew up with a single mom, and just a lot of different adversity that occurred. And I actually had to start working when I was 15 to pay my mother rent. And so, and I grew up on welfare and things like this. And so I developed a work ethic. And when I would say that the residency program that I went to was very much focused on when you were done, you were going to go into academic medicine, you were going to be an administrator, you were going to do research, you were going to hold all the roles. Yeah. And so when I came to where I am, I think I just was ready to do that because I had come from a place where that was just expected. And even as a resident, like I was a chief resident and ended up doing a fellowship. I had already moved into some leadership roles at that point. Right. So when I got there, but I will say I was a little bit of a bull in a china shop, because when I got to where I work, I sort of was like, okay, this and this and this needs to be fixed. And places look at that like, okay, so what are you saying? Are you trying to tell us that what we've been doing has been wrong? And, it can cause like a defensive. So I would say that I did come in guns a-blazing. That didn't always serve me well. And I did have to learn from that. But it did help me to say, okay, this is how I want to lead. This is how I'm going to react to very strong personalities that are coming up to me, in the operating room and saying this and this and this, and really learning how I want to be showing up, instead of at the end of the day being, gosh, why did I say that? Or, I wish I would have handled that differently. And not to say that I handle everything perfectly, but just started to learn as a leader how I wanted to start showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you had a challenging childhood and sort of teenage years, and you were quite a gritty, almost battle-hardened person even when you were young, and that was just, and you presumably had a lot of armor. You'd kind of like
exactly
developed a lot, a very thick skin because of your personal experiences and things that other people would have taken personally or been hurt by or shied away from. You were like, no, I can cope with this. I've dealt with worse in my life.
Right. And I think that and I will say this is hilarious now that you said that. You just reminded me of something. I started working at McDonald's when I was 15 to, pay my mom rent. I had to buy a car and all this. And I said I wanted to be a cook. And they're like, girls don't cook. And I was like, well, then I'm going to be the first woman who does that. And I did. I guess that started. It all started there. No, but I always have been the person who felt like they needed to take care of the underdog, the person who couldn't help themselves. And so I think that really did come from my childhood and feeling like I was a victim at all the time, and that I really needed to take care of everybody else. And that's part of my leadership style as well. Yeah.
That's good. And obviously, as you said, you came up against some resistance and pushback early on in your leadership career. And I think it would be abnormal if anyone went into their first leadership role and it went smoothly and seamlessly and whatever. I mean, I know we're medics, right? We're not taught leadership. We're not, we could do with leadership training at medical school, we could do with it on residency programs and so on. But we just don't have that many opportunities. It's slowly starting to improve. There are things coming out, but it's understandable that, you're just thrust into a leadership role because you're a physician, because it's just expected that. And we are leaders of people, as you climb through the ranks, you are, when you're a resident, you're leading younger residents, interns, medical students, etc. It is, it's all part of that, but you're not really taught how to deal with everyone in the round.
Exactly.
As a so but these things make us who we're becoming. And you're a fabulous affiliative collaborative leader now, and I am talking about leadership with people. It's we learn, and hopefully
absolutely.
we can share this stuff.
Yes, I mean, everything that happens to us happens just exactly the way it is supposed to. That's the way that I live my life.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So were there any doctors senior to you, female or male, that helped you rise early on?
Yes, I had one surgeon who I really admired very much. She was chief of staff of the hospital when I was a very young anesthesiologist, and we worked a lot together. And I sort of looked to her as a role model for how I wanted to be. I was very fortunate, though, that there was actually a neurosurgeon that we worked together as well. I did a neuroanesthesiology fellowship as well, so did a lot of anesthesia for neurosurgery. And he saw leadership potential, and then had initiated my role as the vice chief of staff, and then move up to the chief of staff. And then that led to being the head of like the medical executive committee and the peer review committee and a lot of other things. So I've just been very fortunate that other people have recognized leadership roles, and that they've said, we think you would be good. So really sponsors, which doesn't happen for women as often as it does for men. So I've been very fortunate for that. And then this leadership role that I have in the American Society of Anesthesiologists, there was a woman, her name is Dr. Linda Hertzberg, who was a trailblazer for women in anesthesiology. And I also got affiliated with her, and she helped me become the chair of the committee.
That's great.
So yes, great. I've had, and that's just a few people. There's been a lot of amazing people along the way. Sure. But they were kind of instrumental mentors for you, and and you say you were lucky and fortunate, but you had the skills there. You were I suppose a diamond in the rough or something. They could see the potential in you. So it wasn't luck per se. You had it. You had the talent. It's just good that they recognized that and acted to support you, rather than what can happen in some situations, which is feeling threatened by people like that. So it's good. Yes.
So it's been pretty positive so far. I'm hoping not to bring us on too much of a downer, but it is important for me in this show for aspiring leaders to learn about some of the pitfalls of getting into leadership roles, and how my experts like yourself have dealt with these situations and navigated them. So did you ever experience any challenges like bullying, discrimination, harassment, or anything else on your journey? And if so, how did you cope with that and move past it?
I would have to say, with the way that I lead, I will directly confront people. And so if there is someone who says to me, oh, this person, is angry at you or said this or you did this, I'm the first person to call and say, let's discuss this, let's clear the air and have an honest conversation. And I am willing to accept when I've, made a mistake, not made the right decision, because, we're not perfect, we're human. Yeah. And so I confront things, I would say, head on. I have been in some situations that I will say with other people that, frankly, there wasn't really a great solution to it except to set boundaries with those people, and really to decide, okay, do I want to continue in this role because I do not think that this situation is fixable? Do I want to, continue going down this path, or is it time for me to exit this role? Because although we want to think of everything as right or wrong, or this is fair and this is not fair, sometimes things just happen. and it just is. But you have to decide, in my opinion, for yourself, is this role empowering you? Are you letting it empower you, or are you becoming disempowered from this role? And so, I would say in general, yes, I have faced challenges in leadership, and I've tried to address them head on. But again, I'm not going to continue to push for something that is just not going to be the right thing for me.
Yeah, I understand. Is there a particular situation that kind of springs to mind that you could share, that you could sort of anonymize, and it wouldn't be too obvious, where there's been some learning?
I would say that there was a situation when I first came to where I am, and there was a situation with a surgeon who had a bad outcome and really was trying to blame me for that bad outcome as far as the anesthesia, when it was actually just the patient's pathology that they came in with. And it really pushed it far. And being a new physician, I also was in the middle of going through a divorce, so was a single parent and pretty much the sole financial responsibility for both my kids. I still had to go ahead and push forward and fight the fight. Once it was resolved, though, I decided that it really wasn't the right team for me to remain on. And so I switched. And part of it was because what was going on in my personal life with my divorce. But I sort of was like, I push this as far as I want to push it. The air is clear, but I'm exiting this team because I think it's going to be better for myself and my life for multiple reasons.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So it was on your terms, though. That's the thing. You kind of had control of that situation. It wasn't like you felt like you had to leave. You could have carried on in that situation, but you were like, I guess, it probably wasn't in alignment with your values and so on to kind of like stay within that role.
Right. And I would say, the leadership role that I just left, I was in for 7 years, and I had gotten to the point where it was time for somebody else to take over the team, because I felt like I had accomplished so many things that I wanted to accomplish, but it was time for someone who was going to be in that role for a longer period of time, who was younger than I was, really wanted to continue to push things forward in the division that I had come to my sort of limits, is what I thought I could do. And it was time for me to say, you know what, it's been great to be in this role, and it's been incredible, but it's time for somebody else to take over. And I think that the key thing is, especially for women, is that you're coming from a place again of being empowered and making these decisions for yourself, for what is best for you. Because I think that's often issues that physicians run into, is that we have learned to not listen to ourselves and be compassionate towards ourselves and what we need. And sometimes we'll stay in roles just because we feel that we have to. We're supposed to sacrifice ourselves for everybody else. And so we can, and if you get burned out in a role, that isn't going to help your team as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. And so that kind of episode coincided with you having been in the role for a certain period of time, and it just, everything was just right to move on then.
Right. The other episode was younger in my career, and this was just recently, but it was, time to say, hey, this has been wonderful, but time for someone else.
Yeah. No, good. But I think the key thing is it's on your terms. You kind of, you own that decision. You don't feel, kind of under duress or backed into a corner, or, kind of coerced into doing something. So that's empowering in itself, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, thank you for that excellent advice, kind of navigating through these tricky situations. Do you have any other advice for our listeners on how to become what I think you are, a strong and kind leader?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say some of the biggest work is really understanding yourself first and what your motivation is for wanting to be in a leadership role. And as physicians, we want to fix things, right? We want to make people better, and we want to make systems better. But I think you really understand what your motivation is, your why. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Your vision, understanding how you lead. So I think it is really helpful in our current times to actually use some objective tools like the Enneagram or the DISC profile. There's so many different personality tests that you can do now that are scarily insightful. I mean, they are spot on when you start looking, and a lot of them will actually tell you how you like to lead and why, and also how people need to communicate with you and how to be the most effective, because people are different, right? If we look at the Enneagram, there's 9 different types. If you look at the DISC, there's 4 different types. And so people are very different. Not everybody's going to be the same. And I think what happens with physician leaders, oftentimes, especially like I was with the command and control, the D personality, and there's not many women who are Ds. But I expected everybody to have the same work ethic that I did. So, if I'm going to work this hard and be this motivated, you should do the same. And that's just not, really the correct mindset to have. I mean, as the leader, you can set the vision, hope that you inspire people, but really to understand your leadership style. And I would say that getting additional leadership courses, I know I keep focusing on women, but like there's the Harvard leadership course. There are so many leadership courses because, again, there's another element for women, but just in general, for anyone who's taking on a leadership role, take additional courses, because as you said, we don't get any training specifically going through medical school, residency, to become a leader. And it is very challenging, especially nowadays in medicine, because you have administration with what they're trying to do, you have your team, and then you have the patients. And so you're really working in a very complicated system, and you're kind of juggling all these balls. You have like 10 balls in the air, and you're trying to focus on what is most pertinent at the time. So again, advise, get some extra training, have a coach. I will say that every physician that's in a leadership role should have a coach, and it's not because it's punitive. Coaching used to be something punitive in medicine. Now it should just be a must. Like I will never be without a coach, just as a person, but definitely to have a coach. And there's leadership coaches, there's life coaches, there's executive coaching, there's so many different types, but definitely have a coach.
Yeah. Well, you're preaching to the choir here, of course.
Right.
I have a coach as well, so and she's absolutely essential to me. And actually, there's a lovely, very, very brief snippet of an interview that Marshall Goldsmith does with Dr. Jim Kim, who is a medical doctor, a physician by a nephrologist, I think, by training, and I'm not sure if he still is, president of the World Bank. And I think I'll put it in the show notes. It's literally like 2 minutes long, but Dr. Kim talks about, how Atul Gawande had a coach, and Tiger Woods has a coach, and whatever. And it's like, so coaches are, we need coaches initially to kind of, help us get to the level that we can be at, but then to continue with that, to maintain that level of excellence that we get to. So, but I mean, it's testament to you that you have such insight into how your background, life affected your leadership style, and what your leadership style was initially. And like you said, not in back in the day, trying to encourage people to work as hard as you, because you were very, very hard working. And now we know that obviously it's important to kind of like have that life balance, and not kind of push ourselves and burn out, and the things that that you see on the email signatures now. You know, I may be sending this email at 11 p.m. or 3 a.m., but I do not expect you to reply outside of working hours and things like that. And it's just
absolutely
it's got to be better, hasn't it? I think so. Excellent. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure. No, I mean it's the way forward, isn't it? With you know, with physician burnout and at sort of epic proportions, we just need to do that, don't we? Concentrate on people having their rest time and having their downtime and whatever. So,
well, I think too, you know, if we, you know, looking at the system and as far as leadership in that manner, you know, we know the medical system is broken. You know, people are working on that, but, you know, obviously it's going to be a slow change. I think COVID obviously has amplified all of the issues with healthcare workers, but we still do have some control of ourselves. And that's the part that's critical. You know, we hear, oh, do yoga, meditate, become more resilient. Well, we're already the most resilient people that walk the earth, but
that's so true. So true.
We can take care of ourselves so that the medical system does not suck the life out of us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can't get to where you and my other guests are without being super resilient. So yeah, it's a little wellness course, a little bit of lunchtime, you know, meditation. What lunchtime?
Right. No, you know? Yeah. I laugh when people say, what's your day off? And I'm like, what do you mean? Or, you know, or what's your lunch hour? I'm like, well, I have 10 minutes maybe between a case to grab something, and, you know, and I'm going to try to remember to go to the restroom when I get a minute, you know? Yeah. So
absolutely.
So we have to take care of ourselves, and there are ways to do that. We just have to give ourselves the self-compassion and grace, and to say that, you know, we deserve to have self-care and take care of ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really powerful. Thank you. Okay. So coming towards the closing questions now. So firstly, what would be your take home leadership messages for our listeners?
I would say that every physician is a born leader. As you mentioned, we lead teams all the time, but to really decide how you want to show up every day. And that when you go home at the end of the day, are you beating yourself up for the things that you should, all these shoulds that we do to ourselves? I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done it. Decide how you want to be, decide if you really want to be in leadership. Get extra training, figure out your personality type, get a mentor, get a sponsor, get a coach. Those are sort of the main things I would say, but that we need physicians in leadership, and we need women physicians, we need people of different colors. You know, we know that if patients are not taken care of by people that look like them, they get differences in their care. I don't know if it's the same where you are, but certainly in the United States. So we need diverse leaders who bring their piece to the table. But we have to be effective at it. And that's the thing, is that we have to learn how to function within these systems when there's so many pieces pulling at us and you're trying to decide, who am I serving, you know, but the big picture of what you're trying to do. It is difficult, I will say, sometimes to walk your line of integrity, and there will be people on a daily basis who try to push you off your line of integrity. I would say that if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. And so do not say or talk or tell your team to lead or to act in a certain way when you are not doing the same on a daily basis. And I will say for women, I know, again, I bring up the gender piece, but, you know, there are different factors or challenges that women leaders face that are very, very real. And they add so much more complexity to a leadership role.
No, and do bring up the gender thing. This is why this podcast is in existence, you know? But I mean, I was talking to our good friend, Dr. Dawn Sears recently, and, you know,
she's
like
awesome.
you said, as as you all are.
Oh.
Otherwise I wouldn't have invited you on. So
Thank you.
but you hold down a full-time job, then you're still the primary caregiver for your children. You're still kind of like rushing home to make their dinner and help them with the homework and go to the PTA and the games and all of this sort of stuff. You have all of that to kind of factor into your life as well. And some of the men don't necessarily do that, and they will maybe go to the golf course and strike those deals with their fellow physicians while you're looking after your kids and things like that.
Well, that's right. And it's actually called the second shift when you go home and you have your second full-time job. And that is actually, I'm really glad you brought that up, because networking is a key thing for leadership roles that women have. We are not given the same opportunities. As you said, there's a lot of networking that goes on the golf course. And for the most part, women don't get invited, to play golf with their colleagues, for multiple reasons. But really not playing small as a woman leader and wanting, letting yourself step out of the box. But there is something that I've learned about, interestingly, recently, is that there are other women who are in leadership roles who are stepping a little bit out of the gender norms that we're put into. But this, I'm not sure if this is great to bring up or not, but when they see other women that are in leadership roles but are stepping more out of the gender norms, they don't agree, and they're sort of like, why are those women really stepping too much out of the gender norms, and can actually work against those other women, which is a known phenomenon, which is very difficult when other women are working against you. Yeah.
I've had this discussion with a few female colleagues, and and I've heard from clients, female clients, where there aren't as many female enemies, if you like, but they exist, and that in itself is surprising, disheartening, and it adds an extra layer of challenge, doesn't it? So that is a discussion for another day, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
It would be a very long discussion. It would be a lively discussion.
It would be maybe a group discussion, actually.
A panel.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right. Thank you for those excellent take-home messages. So what are you currently excited to be working on that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I am really excited that I am getting to go, I would say, give some talks about coaching and how you can leverage coaching for leadership and physician well-being. And so I've been able to do that at a couple of major universities, and I'm getting ready to do that again in October and in 2 settings. So I'm excited about those talks and continuing to add to those talks. I just had a few papers published on coaching and gender equity issues, which is really exciting. And I am going to be continuing to work with my clients and changing my coaching business a little bit more coming up in the fall to really focus on women leaders and going towards more group coaching with individual coaching as well. So I'm really excited about all of that, and just the new chapter coming, because the transformations that I see with coaching with the women that I coach, it's just incredible. It's just life-changing, just as it was for me. Additionally, I do want to start coaching men, though, and I do want to start coaching individuals out of medicine as well, professional women, because it's all the same. And I'm finding I've coached several men, and I'm just finding they need a lot of coaching as well. It's just a teeny bit different, but the things that they're dealing with. But so many in the physician world, there are so many of the coaches are women physicians that coach other women physicians, but the men need it just as much. So opening that up as well.
Well, congratulations on all the invites to the talks.
Thank you.
I mean, what can I say? The stuff that you're doing, the coaching for wellbeing stuff, kind of, and the research behind that is it's so worthwhile, and proving what us physician coaches kind of know, but it's it's data to give us a bit more credibility, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And why not? Just coach whoever you want. Don't be restricted. It's interesting that you say, I think there are definitely male clients, physicians and otherwise, who would prefer to have a female coach, and similarly, I've had female physicians come to me preferentially because they wanted a male coach rather than another female coach. So it definitely would work both ways. So it's just down to the individual, isn't it? So
yes, absolutely. But we're really just looking at our mind when we're getting coached. But
not to put ourselves in a little box and say we must just coach certain clients. It's exciting and interesting to kind of coach different people, isn't it? So
it really is. And I do want to continue to evolve with my coaching of people who have had trauma, because I realize about the very traumatic background that I've had, which have led to me being the person I am today, that I really helping people go through that journey and understanding how it affected them, because it's really what happened to you and what happened to your body and what still lives in your body. And understanding that today, and becoming free from that, and really understanding that you're not broken. These things happen and it lives in your body, and there's ways to heal.
Well, that is such incredibly valuable and important work, and thank you for being so open and sharing that kind of side of you with us as well. Really appreciate that courage. Okay, so if any of the listeners would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
My website is physicianhealer.com, and if you go on there, you can book a discovery call. You can sign up for my 5-day journal, and that could get you started sort of on the coaching journey of life coaching. And on Instagram, it's at The Physician Healer, and Facebook at The Physician Healer.
Perfect. And I'll put those in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
No, thank you. Literally, this is the closing question. Do you have any final words you'd like to share with our listeners before we say goodbye?
Just that I'm honored to be on this podcast with all your other amazing guests, and to thank you for all the work that you're doing and what you're bringing to your clients and talking about bullying for physicians. And we all have to take care of each other. It's time to help the people that help the people, but to really just know that we all deserve to be happy. And we deserve to have lives, and we deserve to be able to be joyful in all areas of our lives.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, celebrate that for sure. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for coming on the show and sharing all your wisdom and wonderful advice and your personal experience and perspective. It's been really eye-opening and really helpful, and I know the listeners are going to get so much out of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Take care, Stephanie. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.